With the new Division 2 DLC Battle for Brooklyn and Year 7 Season 1 officially releasing over 1 month ago, I decided to do an update video of the best PvE builds for Year 7 Season 1 Crossroads. We're going to have 8 builds here, and all 8 of these builds are amazing to use. And whether you want to do legendary missions, master difficulty, or just solo some missions, there's going to be a build in here for you. And currently, these are my 8 go-to builds for PvE in the Division 2. So let's get into it. So by now, most of you guys know Backfire is probably one of the most popular guns in this season because of the way the passive modifier allows us to stack up hazard protection and be able to survive that bleed when we are at full stacks. And that's what's really good about the Backfire this season and why so many people are running it on so many builds. The way we're able to stack so much armor on our builds and still hit very hard has given players a new way to play with lots of damage and lots of survivability. So we are running a 4-piece striker. We have 15% weapon handling, 15% rate of fire, and we have Striker's Gamble. Weapon hits increase total weapon damage by 0.65%, stacking up 100 times, 1 stack lost per second between 0 and 50, and 2 stacks lost between 50 and 100. And if you remember my previous Haz Pro builds, well, we were running Haz protection on all the striker pieces, as you guys will see in just a second. It's the same thing with this build here. Now, this build is a lot easier to build a stack because we aren't running the striker chest, so you can just use the Backfire if you want to, but if you want to speed up the process, you can swap to the ACS and then switch over. We do have armor on here. We have Haz protection on every single piece, so if you're trying to farm these pieces, what you need to do is farm a piece that has Haz protection, and then you can roll the core attribute because the core attribute is always going to roll red. So you have to farm the piece that has Haz protection. Then you can optimize that, and then you can roll the armor roll on there. And then we have critical hit damage mod on this. For the chest, I went with the Yao chest piece. This gives us 10% hazard protection, just like the Hollow Man mask gave us 10% hazard protection. We have armor on here. We have Haz protection. We have critical hit damage and a critical hit damage mod. And then it allowed me to roll Obliterate on here. If you're able to farm one that has Obliterate, Haz Pro, or Obliterate critical hit damage, this is always going to run blue, so you don't have to worry about rolling that. You just want to make sure you get these 2 rolls and Obliterate. And this is going to allow you to put out an insane amount of damage without having to build that striker chest piece stack. So this is actually a great piece to run. For the holster, we have our second piece of strikers with armor and hazard protection. Again, you need to farm the Hazard Pro, and then you can roll the armor. For our third piece of strikers, we have the knee pads with Haz Pro and armor. For our fourth piece, we have the gloves, striker gloves with Haz Pro and armor. And then the backpack, we are running the mental backpack with weapon damage, armor, skill tier, and we have critical damage on here. Again, this is why this build is so good. Remember, when we're at full stacks, that means we picked up 30 trophies. We're sitting at an additional 30% weapon damage, 30% skill efficiency, and 3% armor regen. We also are going to have 5% weapon damage. So for every trophy we pick up, and that'll last 10 seconds, we'll have 60% bonus armor for every trophy we picked up for 10 seconds and 5% skill efficiency. But this is the build right here. I do like running the Crusader shield if I really need it. Remember, it's going to be tier 6, so it's going to have a lot of health, 4.7 million health. And then we do have the Reviver Hive, but you guys can swap out whatever you want. For the modifiers, you guys want to make sure you guys go with Assault Link. Assault Link is actually pretty amazing, and that's why I like this one. For every duration of the ability, you gain 5% weapon damage for every non-red core equipped. So remember, we have a ton of non-red cores. We have 6 blues, 1 yellow, so yeah, it's a lot of damage. The attributes are frozen, and bonuses are multiplied by 4. Passive modifier values are multiplied by 2. So this is why Assault Link is so good, especially on those high armor builds, all blue builds. Now, we have safety first. Haz protection is increased by 7.5% for each stamina bar. You know, we have 6 blues, so that's why you guys want that. And then we also have loaded up. 25% of your crit chance value is added to your critical damage while you're at tier 5. Once I proc the Assault Link, I'll be at tier 5, and that's when that will transfer over. And then we have gained 5% protection elites per blue core at tier 5 stamina. And we're going to be there because, you know, we have 6 tiers. So that's why this, with the extra protection from elites, with the safety first, is really good. If you feel like you're tanky enough, what you can do is you can take off extra padding, and then you can go down here and then put on best of a kind. While at least tier 3 of both firearms and stamina, you gain 2.5% headshot damage for every 100,000 total armor. So best of a kind could be good there. So if you feel like, you know what, I feel like I'm too tanky, I don't need the extra padding, that's where you can swap that out and gain some extra damage. But yeah, that's what you guys can do there. But overall, this is the build right here, guys. Now, the second build we're going to be talking about is probably my most tankiest protection from elite damage build. And I really like this build for those harder difficulties. You can either run this on master difficulties, or you can even try running this on legendary. But again, this is that protection from elites heartbreaker build that has gotten me through master difficulty. So if you guys have been looking for a protection from elites heartbreaker build for PvE, take a look at this one. I am running the Chameleon. Now, I will swap to the St. Elmo's engine for the hunters. Now, if you don't have the Chameleon, you can just run the St. Elmo's engine from start to finish. Now, if you guys do have the Chameleon, then use the Chameleon. Once you get to the hunters, you'll swap to the St. Elmo's engine. Also, if you guys want to fight the hunters with the Scorpio, you can try that too. Now, it has 900 RPM, 88,000 total damage based on a build with 1 red, 6 blues, 1 yellow. And then we also have assault rifle, health damage, and damage to targets out of cover. So for the Heartbreaker, why did we go with the Heartbreaker? Well, the Heartbreaker is one of those pieces that gives you 15% assault rifle and 15% LMG damage. Not only that, it gives you 15% weapon handling, which helps out on your reload speed, accuracy, stability, all the good things. So that's a big win there. Now, Heartbreaker. Headshots apply pulse for 5 seconds. So when you're hitting headshots with your thing, you're going to be applying Heartstopper. Weapon hits on pulse enemies as a stack bonus of 1% bonus armor and 1.1% weapon damage to pulse enemies up to a max of 50. Now, we're going to be running the chest piece, so this is going to go up to 100, but that is actually what's pretty insane with this. That's 110% extra weapon damage we're going to have on this build once we have the chest piece, and I'll read that to you in a second. We have armor on here, 170,000 armor, and then you got to go with crit chance on all the pieces. We do have 12% protection from elites on all the mods possible. For the chest piece, we're running the Heartbreaker chest piece. We have armor, critical chance again, and protection from elites, as I mentioned. And what does the chest piece do? Well, it increases max stacks from 50 to 100, and that's why we're able to get 110% extra weapon damage on our build because of the chest piece. Now, I did go with the improvised holster on this one. I know a lot of you guys said, yo, Skills, what if you don't have the chill out mask? So for this build, guys, what I'll tell you is the improvised holster, you can actually craft this piece. It comes with no attribute, but with this, we're actually gonna get crit chance or crit damage, and the improvised holster is the only piece that allows you to put a mod slot, which we're able to stack more protection from elites on here. So armor, crit damage, crit chance. Remember, you guys can craft this at your crafting station. For our knee pads, we have our third piece of Heartbreaker, and that's gonna be armor, and we have crit damage on this one. And then for our gloves, we have a fourth and final piece. We have armor and crit chance. Now for the backpack, we're running the Memento backpack. Great for solo play. We have weapon damage, armor, skill tier, and then protection from elites. And then take a look at this. Enemies you kill drop a trophy. So that means with this build, every time we pick up a trophy, we're only getting 5% weapon damage, but we're getting 60% bonus armor on top of the bonus armor we're getting from shooting enemies, which is crazy, right? Because if we have an enemy pulse, we're getting that stack there, and then we're also getting the bonus armor. So this is why this build, if you guys want, you guys could probably go down to 2 reds and 5 blues. Before this build, I wanted to show you guys how you guys can do it. If you feel like you could put out more damage and survive a little bit more, that will get you there. But yeah, Memento is going to be that. For the skills, I'm running the Crusader Shield, and then we have the Scanner Pulse. And if we check out our stats, you'll see we have 49% crit chance on the build, 69% crit damage, 70% headshot damage, 21% health damage, 10% damage targets out of cover. And then over here, we have almost 1.9 million armor, and we have 58% protection from elites on this build. So again, that is where our survivability comes through, and that is the build. Let's get into our next build, the Hot Shot. The great thing about the Hot Shot is this is going to allow you to pretty much one tap anything going all the way up to heroic. Now, the way the Hot Shot works is the 2 piece is going to give you marksman rifle damage and weapon handling, and the 3 piece is going to give you headshot damage. Now, the reason I personally like Hot Shot is because of headache. The first headshot with the marksman rifle will increase your next headshot by 20%. The second consecutive headshot with the marksman rifle will give you 10% armor. And if you're at full armor, it'll give you a bonus armor max of 50% of your current armor value. Now, the third consecutive headshot will constantly refill the magazine. And that's why I really like this, because you're going to be hitting headshot, headshot, headshot once you proc determine. And we'll get into that too for you newer and returning players. Now, from the 4th headshot forward, agents will get all 3 bonuses from each consecutive headshot kill. Missing a headshot will reset the cycle. For the mask, we're going to be running armor, headshot damage, and headshot damage. This is pretty much what you're gonna see throughout this build in particular. For the chest piece, we have the Chain Killer chest piece. Now this is a Walker and Harris chest piece with 5% weapon damage, and we have weapon damage on here, headshot damage, weapon handling, and headshot damage mod. So again, you just need to have headshot, weapon handling. You can put crit if you want on there, but yeah, headshot damage, weapon handling, headshot damage mod. Now, the reason I like Perfect Headhunter, after killing an enemy with the headshot, your next weapon hit within 30 seconds deals an additional 150% of that killing blow's damage. Damage is capped to 800% of the weapon damage, but this is raised to 1,250% if your headshot damage is greater than 150%. Now, if you don't have the Chain Killer chest piece, you can go with the regular Headhunter, which gives you 125%, and you can go with any other chest piece you can find. For the holster, we have weapon damage, headshot damage, and it's another hotshot piece. For the gloves, we have another hotshot piece, weapon damage, headshot damage. For the knee pads, our fourth and final piece of hotshot for weapon damage, headshot damage. So pretty much weapon damage on everything except one roll we do have blue. And then for the backpack, we have Orality, which gives us that 10% marksman rifle damage. We have weapon damage, weapon handling, headshot damage, and headshot damage right here. Now, I personally have Bloodsucker on here, but if you guys are newer, recommend probably staying away for Bloodsucker until you get a little bit more damage or you start working on your Shade Watch, because you can probably put something like Vigilance, which is going to give you a ton of damage. Remember, Vigilance increases your total weapon damage by 25%. But since I hit so hard with the build, as you guys saw, I didn't even need that extra 25% total weapon damage because I was getting the extra survivability from Bloodsucker. Now, I personally like the SR1 replica, but you can run any other marksman rifle you want that has about 1 million damage. You kind of want to go with any of them that have 1 million. There are going to be some that hit a little bit harder, like the M700 hits a little harder. I personally like the SR1. It's one of the ones that have a cartridge. So once I reload, it reloads all 10 in the magazine, which is really good. Now, we do have marksman rifle damage, headshot damage, damage targets to cover. I did put some expertise on this, but I will tell you, I ran this on a hardcore character at low level with, I think, 200 shade level, and I was one-shotting and killing heroic. So you guys can definitely use this on those higher difficulties at lower shade levels. Don't worry about that. And then what really puts this together is determined after killing an enemy with a headshot, your next landed to any enemy will be a guaranteed headshot. But the way it works with this build is once you get that one headshot, it's all body shots. So you do not have to worry about anything else. Now for the scope, you can put whatever you want. I do have the hollow sight that gives me 10% because I don't want to be scoped in. If you want one that lets you scope in, you can put that on there. We have 5 rounds, 30% accuracy, and 30% accuracy on the large suppressor. But again, this is up to you how you guys want to run it. For a secondary, I pretty much put the Scorpio there just as a backup. If you don't have the Scorpio, you can run any other. They have other shotguns out there. Something like the Mop can give you some survivability too. For your skills, the Reviver Hive, especially since you're running a sniper, and then you can run the Pulse or whatever you want there. And let's get into my next build, my favorite support build, the Refractor build. What if I told you in the Division 2, you could be a healer and a skill damage player at the same exact time? Well, I have the build for you, and this gear set is probably one of the most underrated, underused gear sets in the Division 2. When you guys pair this with a really good team and on Legendary, it will keep them alive. Just look at MD. He almost lost all of his armor, and instantly he got it back. Look at the other guy, he takes a little bit of damage, instantly got his armor back. So as long as my skills are doing damage, these guys will have no issue staying up. And that's why this is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, and I think probably one of the best support gear sets in the Division 2 at the moment. So let's talk about the gear set. So we are going to be running the 4-piece Refractor set, and the reason why this is so good is because we're not taking advantage of the 2-piece, but we are taking advantage of the 3-piece, which gives us 25% skill damage. And then the 4-piece Return to Sender is where this really shines, and this is where we're getting our healing for us and our teammates. You receive repairs of 10% of damage dealt by your skills, and your allies receive repairs of 20% of damage dealt by your skills. So you're getting 10% baseline, and they're getting 20%. But we're going to raise this up because we are going to be running the chest piece. The chest piece talent. Now we have increased interest, increase the repairs received from Return to Sender from 10% to 25% for you. So that's a ton of extra incoming healing. And then we also, for our teammates, it's going to go from 20% to 35%. So now our teammates are going to get 35% healing. So not only are you getting 25% healing, but your teammates are going to get 35%. And that's why this is actually really, really good, especially because that 35% can save your teammates, especially if they're putting out the majority of the damage and you're putting out damage with your skills, your capacitor, and healing. This is going to help keep them up, keep you up. It's just a win-win situation. Now, some of you guys may ask, well, how was your damage skills? And if you notice, check out my damage compared to 2 other striker builds that were on the team. So my damage dealt wasn't that far off, but was even more impressive was I was healing them for 35% of my damage dealt, which is really, really good. And I was also being healed for 25%. So not only am I putting out damage, I'm actually healing the team and keeping us up longer. But let's get into the full build breakdown. So for the weapon, we are going to be running the capacitor. The reason why you want to run the capacitor with this build is because it's going to allow you to put out more damage with your skills. And in return, that's going to heal you and your teammates more, right? And the capacitor is the best weapon for that. It has assault rifle, damage to armor, and then you're going to want damage targets out of cover. You head down, you'll see we have the capacitor talent, and it says shooting enemy builds a stack of cap of 40. Each stack grants 0.5% skill damage. Now you can get this up to 40 stacks, and that's where this gets pretty impressive because that's a total of 60% extra skill damage you're getting for each of your skills because we are running 2 different skills. Not only that, we're also getting 7.5% weapon damage for each yellow skill tier. So since we have 6 skill tier, we're going to be getting additional 45% extra weapon damage on our weapon, allowing us to put out a ton of damage. The great thing also about this weapon is it has critical hit chance 10%, 30% crit damage, 10% weapon handling, and 11 rounds in the magazine. So for our first piece of refractor, we're going to be running the mask, and then we're going to have skill tier on here, and we're also going to have skill damage. Since we have a lot of skill haste and skill duration on this build, I'm going to go with protection from elites, but you can put skill haste or skill damage right here. As I mentioned before, we are running the refractor chest piece for the talent. We do have skill tier, skill damage, and protection from elites mod. And again, this does have the talent increased threat. The reason why we're running this is for the extra healing that we're going to get to ourselves from 10%. Now we're getting 25%, and to teammates from 20% to 35%. For our third piece of refractor, we are going with the knee pads. And on this one is going to be one that we're able to run armor because we are running the technician class that gives us 1 skill tier. So we can sacrifice 1 blue roll on this build, and then we have skill damage right here. For the gloves, we are running the 4th and final piece of refractor, and this is going to be skill tier and skill damage. For the exotic on this one, we're going to go with the waveform holster. This is going to have skill tier, skill damage, and skill haste. The reason we're going to go with this is because you're going to generate a stack of 3% skill damage on one of your skills every second. It does cap at 10. So that means at any point you can have up to 30% skill damage on one of your skills and then 30% skill damage on the other skill. And then as it gets to max cap, it will start to go down, and slowly the stacks will go down and then go to the other skill. So the damage will go back and forth, and you'll see that as you guys are using your skills. And I think this is one of the better skill damage pieces in the game. Waveform holster is just that good. And for the backpack, we're going with the Handy You backpack, the force multiplier. You can actually buy this from the Countdown vendor if you guys are watching this in time. Some of you guys might not, but you can just farm it if you need to. It has 10% skill haste on here. We have skill tier, and then it has skill haste, skill damage, and then again, we have protection from elites. But this one comes with a perfect talent called Perfect Combined Arms. Shooting enemy increases total skill damage by 30% for 3 seconds. So as long as I'm shooting enemies, my skill damage is going to be even higher. You remember, the higher your skill damage is, the more damage you're doing. That means the more healing that your teams are going to get, because your teams are going to get 30%, 35% of that damage back to them, and then you're going to get 25%. So the more damage you can put out, the bigger the heals are going to be for your teammates, keeping them up a lot longer. Now for the skills, we are going with the striker drone, and you remember we're going to have tier 6, so we're going to get the bonus of 120% striker damage and 420% health damage. I do have 20% striker damage on my striker drone. I think this is something you should invest in at some point, especially if you're going to run a skill damage build. So we're going to get extra damage just right there. And you can see just the base damage is 83,000. Obviously, those numbers are going to be a lot higher because that's without all the buffs themselves. And for the striker drone mods, we are running duration, health, and damage. Ideally, these are the 3 mods you're going to want to go with. And then you pair that up and you can kind of see we're running with the assault turret, and the same thing We do have a tier 6, so we're getting 120% damage, 420% health on it. We do have 20% damage on there. We do have damage mod, duration mod, skill haste mod. And for the modifiers, we are running the assault link. You can put a lot of different ones. The reason I decided to go with the assault link, because if you look at this, is for the duration of the ability, you gain 5% weapon damage for every non-red core equipped. And remember, we're going to have up to 6 non-red cores. So that's extra 30% weapon damage we will have on this build. And that gives us extra weapon damage with our capacitor, which already hits pretty hard, so we can actually help out. Now, attributes are frozen, bonuses are multiplied by 4, the passive modifier values are multiplied by 2. So that's something for you to keep in mind. And then since you are a support player, on activation, allies within 25 meters are also granted a boost of their firearm score, and the modifier's duration is increased by 3 seconds. Now, if we go over here, you can see we have disrupt resistance is increased by 10% for each electronic tier. So since we have 6, we'll have 60% disrupt resistance. This helps out a ton. We also have hands on. So while at electronics tier 5, which we should be, 50% of your skill haste value is added to your skill damage. So we're going to put out more damage every time we hit tier 5. And then we go over here to load it up. 25% of your crit chance value is added to your crit damage while at tier 5 at firearm. And this is the build right here. 4-piece refractor. We have 1 blue roll, but we do have 6 skill tier because we are running the technician class. You're also going to get an additional 10% skill damage from running this as long as you select that in your skill tree. And let's get into our next build, which is going to be a striker DPS build that you guys can use in raids, open world, countdown. And to be honest with you guys, this is probably one of my first builds I put together when I'm making a new account. So for the weapon, we are running the St. Elmo's. Now you can run a ton of different weapons if you guys are going to be running the raid. If you guys have something F2000, the Lexington, or even if you want to run something like the Chameleon, that's really up to you. You can talk to your raid guys. Ideally, a lot of people like running the St. Elmo's, a pretty straightforward weapon. You could aim with it, beam with it, 114,000 total damage, 978 RPM, 70 in the 15% assault rifle, 21% health damage, and 10% damage targets out of cover. And then we have the St. Elmo's talent. After 100 stacks, the next magazine will be 100% filled with shock ammo, which is actually really good. We go down, you'll see down here, we have 15% crit damage on the scope, 30 rounds in the magazine, 10% weapon handling, and then 15% crit chance. So that's why I do like this. You get 15% crit and 15% crit damage. For the secondary, you can run whatever you want. I kind of like the MOP. It's for survivability. The fact is, it's the only weapon in the game that gives you 10% armor on kill for the attribute. And then what I like doing is I like putting preservation on there. Killing an enemy repairs 10% armor over 5 seconds. Now, if you do get a headshot kill, improves your repair by additional 10%. Now you can see on here, we have crit chance, crit damage, and reload speed. I will say the only time I ever use this in a raid is if I get like one of those red or purple enemies and I can get the finishing kill on them, I can get this preservation kicked off and get that 10% armor kill if I need the armor, right? But typically, you're always going to be running with the St. Elmo's engine. For the mask, I'm running the Coyote mask. It gives me weapon damage, crit chance, crit damage, and critical hit damage. Ideally, Coyote's mask is probably one of the best team build masks in the game because of how pack instincts work. You and all allies gain a bonus based on the distance of the last enemy you hit. So 0 to 15 meters, everybody's going to get 25% crit damage. 15 to 25 meters, everybody gets 10% crit chance and 10% crit damage. And 25 meters plus, which hardly ever with this build, but you'll get 25% crit chance. So at minimum, you typically see 10% crit chance, 10% crit damage. A lot of times you'll see the 25% critical damage for your whole team. So that's why somebody in your team usually runs this. I like running this. Speak to your team and see what they want. For the chest piece, we are running the Cheska chest piece. It's going to give us 8% critical hit chance. We have weapon damage, crit chance, and critical hit damage mod on here. And then for the talent, obliterate. Ideally, you do want a weapon damage talent here. If your team allows you and you feel it's your first time, maybe they'll let you run Unbreakable, but Obliterate's going to be what you want for that extra damage. Critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds. Now, this does stack up to 20 times. For our first piece of Striker, it's going to be the holster, and the reason why we are running a 4-piece is because we get 50% weapon handling, 15% rate of fire, but the way Striker gambles works, weapon hits increase total weapon damage by 0.65%, stacking up 100 times. Now, we are going to be running the backpack, so we're going to get 0.90%, stacking up 100 times. Now, we do have weapon damage on here and critical hit damage on the holster. For the knee pads, we have our second piece of Strikers. We have armor, critical damage. I do have one armor roll. Sometimes people go all reds for raids. It's really up to you. For the gloves, we have weapon damage and critical hit chance. And then I mentioned to you guys, we are running the backpack, weapon damage, critical damage mod. And then the reason why we are getting that extra bonus on Striker's Gamble is because of the backpack talent. So increases total weapon damage gain per stack for Striker's Gamble from 0.65 to 0.90%. So that's why this piece is really good. And it's probably going to be your meta piece, your meta build for the raid if you're going to be running the Coyote Mask. Now, say you do not want to run the Coyote Mask. That's where you guys can swap out something like this and go with the Grupo Backpack for the 13% critical damage, weapon damage, critical chance, critical damage, and you can either run Unstoppable Force or Vigilance for the raid. Really up to you. But again, this is probably going to be the second meta. This is going to be the hardest hitting version of it. But again, you would have to swap out the Coyote Mask and put a Striker's Mask. But it depends if your team wants you to run a Coyote Mask or not. If we look at the stats, we have 51% crit chance, 156% crit damage, 75% headshot damage, and 10% damage to targets out of cover. We also have 21% health damage on this. But this is the build that you'll typically see running in raids. Our next build is going to be a one-shot pistol build that got pretty insane this season with the new brand set. Let's get into it. The reason why this build is so powerful is because of the new brand set that just came out. And if you guys haven't heard about it, well, let me tell you. The one piece will give you 5% weapon damage. The two piece gives you 100% increased threat. But the three piece is where it shines with 60% pistol damage. Yes, you heard me right. And if you pair this with the right pistol build, it's going to make one of the hardest hitting pistol builds in the game. Now, disclaimer, you will not be able to one-shot everything in the game, but on Heroic with 5 directives, most of the time, you should be able to take these bosses down. Maybe not this guy right here, who, you know, you got to finish him off with a few headshots. But for everyone else, they should drop with 1 bullet. Now, what I'll tell you also, guys, is this is a pretty min-max build. So it is at the max damage you can get. Talking about the pistol has expertise on it. The build is pretty much God rolled. I think one piece doesn't have headshot damage, and that's because that piece is probably one of the harder pieces to get in the game. But I'm going to be showing you guys how you guys can build this build, and it could be something that you guys put on the side and something you guys want to make later on. It's definitely a fun build to use. So we're going to start off with the pistol. The pistol is the magic around this build. Obviously, I am running the Harvest, which you can't really farm right now because you need to wait till the Loot Goblin actually has the holiday items available. If you guys do not have this item, you guys can actually look for the non-name version, which is the Police Magnum. And the big difference between the two is going to be the base damage. This one has 30 expertise on it, so I'm getting 30% extra weapon damage. But what I want to do for you real quick is I'm actually going to put show damage numbers so you can see. So the regular Police Magnum is probably the second hardest hitting pistol in the game, 233k. This one's 256k base damage. Do not pay attention to the rest, but yeah, they definitely are almost the same. So if you do not have the Harvest, get this one, level it up little by little, and once you get there, you'll be happy. We have pistol damage, damage to targets out of cover. We have Determined, which is key with this build. After killing an enemy with a headshot, your next shot landed on any enemy will be a guaranteed headshot, and that's why I can hit a headshot and then all body shots. We do have 20% reload speed, and then we have the short optics roll that gives us 15% headshot damage. For the mask, we're going with the Punch Struck mask. This is going to give us 20% pistol damage right off the bat. We have weapon damage on here, headshot damage. It also comes with 20% headshot damage. We have weapon handling and then a headshot damage mod. For the chest piece, we are running the new brand set for the 5% weapon damage and the 60% pistol damage. A ton of extra damage you get right there. We have another weapon damage roll, headshot damage, and ideally I would like to get weapon handling here, but I haven't been able to find one. We have headshot damage mod, and then we have the talent Headhunter. For our holster, we are running the Claws Out holster, and a lot of you guys might ask, yo, Skillz, why are you running a Wyvern wear piece? Well, if you guys didn't know, there is a pistol holster by Wyvernware that gives you 500% melee damage but gives you 11% pistol damage. So I have weapon damage, I have an additional 11% pistol damage, and the only thing I would love to change here is I really want headshot damage here. Now this piece right here is typically only found in the dark zone or from name caches that you buy. So good luck out there trying to get this one, but again, if you guys ever see it in a vendor, pick it up pistol damage. You guys want to try to get headshot damage here. For our second piece of the new brand set, we are going to be running the knee pads. This is going to have weapon damage, headshot damage, and weapon handle. This is typically what you guys want on the build. For the gloves, we went with the contractor gloves. For the 8% damage to armor that rolls on the contractor gloves, we're not going to be using the LMG, so it doesn't really matter for us there, but we have weapon damage, damage to armor, and then headshot damage. And then for the backpack, that's our third piece of the new brand set. So we have weapon damage, weapon handling, headshot damage mod, and then vigilance. Increase total weapon damage by 25%. Now, if you do take any damage, it will disable this buff for 4 seconds. But overall, this is the build right here. This thing is an absolute monster. If you guys want to run any specialization, I personally like the gunner class for that 10% armor on kill, especially if you start getting those one shots. That could be a lot of armor you get back that saves you. But you can also run any of the other classes. If you guys want to get a little bit more damage when you pull out your shield, you can even run the firewall shield. But again, I am going to be going with the gunner class for this one. Let's get into our next build, the skill build. Now, for some of you who don't like shooting your weapon and you want to get more damage with your skills, this is going to be that build. Probably one of my favorite skill damage builds to use in the Division 2. So for this build, let's start off with the specialization. We are going to be running the technician class. The technician class is going to give us 1 skill tier, plus it's going to give us 10% skill damage. This actually works great. I love running the technician class if I'm going to run a skill build because that extra 1 skill tier allows me to put a red roll or a blue roll on my build. So for the mask, we are running an Empress International mask. This is going to be a 3-piece on this build. We want that 10% skill haste, 10% skill damage, and 8% skill efficiency. We have skill tier on here, and then we have skill haste, skill damage. And then since it is a solo player build or a build that you can run with something, you can either run 12% protection from elites, or maybe you could put crit chance, really up to you, but that's how you're gonna wanna run the build. So for the chest, we are going with the Uzina chest piece. This is gonna give us 5% total armor. We do have armor rolls on here. We have skill damage. I would like to get skill haste here, and I do have protection from elites here. The protection from elites here helps you, especially we're gonna be doing heroic with this build. And for the talent on the chest piece, we have kinetic momentum. When in combat, each skill generates a stack while active or not on cooldown. Stacks increase your total skill damage by 1.5%, up to 15 stacks per skills. For the holster, we are running the waveform holster, and this is going to be probably one of the best exotic skill damage pieces in the game because it has skill tier, skill damage, skill haste. And the way this talent works is you generate a stack of 3% skill damage on one of your skills every second, capping at 10 stacks. So that means at any given moment, you could have one skill up to 30% skill damage. Now, after 10 seconds at the cap, the stacks transfer to the other skill. So you could have 30% on the other one and maybe at one point 15%, 15%. But again, probably one of the best skill damage exotics in the game. For the knee pads, we went with the Wyvern Wear knee pads for the 8% skill damage. We have skill tier, skill haste, and skill damage. For the gloves, we have the Empress International, our second piece, and we have skill tier, skill status effects, and skill damage. I would like to switch this out for skill haste. And then for the backpack, we have our third and final piece of Empress. And this is going to give us skill tier, skill damage, critical damage, and protection from elites. Again, you could put skill haste on there if you like. But yeah, this is kind of how I have this. I do have combined arms on here, so shooting an enemy increases your total skill damage by 25% for 3 seconds. On capacitor, probably one of the best skill damage weapons in the game. And the way this bad boy works is it has a talent which shooting enemy builds a stack up to 40. Each stack grants 1.5% skill damage. Now, after 5 seconds, the stacks do decay. Also, for every yellow skill tier you have 7.5% weapon damage on this build. So that's why you're not only getting some good damage on your weapon, but you're also getting a lot of damage from your skills themselves. It has assault rifle, damage to armor, and damage to targets out of cover. You can see we're sitting at 96,000 damage, 700 RPM, 41 in the magazine, and 75% headshot damage. And then for the mods, 10% crit chance, 30% crit damage, 10% weapon handling, and 11 rounds in the magazine. So for the skills, we are running the assault turret, and we do have 5% damage on there. We have 7.5% skill haste, and then we have 7.5% duration. For our second skill, the striker drone, we have 7.5% duration. We also have 8.8% health, and then we have 5% damage. So both of these skills are skill damage skills that work perfectly with the waveform holster, with kinetic momentum, and then with combined arms. And that is a skill build there. Now for our final build, the striker build, this is my go-to build 99% of the time, guys. I like running this open world, missions, heroic. Even on legendary, I use a version of this build, and this is going to be my bread and butter. Let's get into the build. Well, by now you guys know how Striker works. Hopefully the 2-piece gives you that 15% weapon handling, the 3-piece gives you that 15% rate of fire, and then Striker's Gamble's weapon hits increase total weapon damage by 0.65%, stacking up 100 times. And the amount of damage this build is going to put out is going to keep enemies dead and keep you alive. Now for the mask, we are running armor here. We have crit damage and crit damage mod. We do have a Cheska chest piece on here for 8% crit chance. We have weapon damage, critical hit chance, and a critical hit damage mod. Now for the talent, I am running Obliterate. Critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds. Now this does stack up to 20 times. That's 20% extra weapon damage on the build. For the holster, we are running a Striker holster for weapon damage and crit damage. For the knee pads, we have weapon damage, crit damage. And for the gloves, Striker gloves, we have weapon damage, crit chance. For the bag, we do have the Memento backpack for the weapon damage, armor, skill tier, critical hit chance, and obviously I explained how kill confirm works already on the build. But when I do pick up a trophy, I'm gonna get 25% extra weapon damage, 20% extra armor, and 5% skill efficiency for 10 seconds. And then the long-term stack is 30% weapon damage, 30% skill efficiency, and 3% armor regen, giving you the survivability you need for this build. For the weapon, you can choose to use the Chameleon, which is probably one of my favorite weapons, or the St. Elmo's. The Chameleon has assault rifle, health damage, and damage to targets cover on here. If you have the Lexington, you can choose to use that. Obviously, the Chameleon has a talent called Adaptive Instincts, which I really like. And the Lexington, if you're gonna run a high end, I would probably go with something like Killer. If you want to run the Police M4, go with Killer, F2000, FAMAS, run Killer on there. But if you guys want to use an exotic with the Chameleon or St. Elmo's engine, those are all going to be really good pieces to put there. For the skills, I have the Reviver Hive and then a Pulse or Defender Drone, really up to you, but this is the build right here. And those are my 5 top builds to use in the Division 2. I will have bookmarks, so if you guys want to go back and save these builds for later, you guys can. I'll see you in the next one. Hey, Nothing But Skills is out.